The metal chamber was silent, cold, and bright like a frozen star. Lyra stood in the center with her hands locked in glowing chains. Her feet were bare on the steel floor, and every step she tried to take sent a sharp sting up her legs. She did not cry, she did not scream. She only stared at the giant round door in front of her. The void door, once it opened, she would be pushed out into endless space where no sound and no body ever returned. Above her head, a red digital timer counted down her last minutes. The numbers burned like fire. 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 8. Each second felt heavier than the last. Lyra tried to breathe, but the air was thin and cruel. The guards standing around her watched with blank faces. They were trained to feel nothing, to show nothing. The captain stood on a high platform. His armor was black like night, his eyes sharp like blades. He spoke with a cold voice that echoed across the chamber. He said Lyra had broken the highest rule. She had rejected the captain's claim. She had refused to obey his order to be his companion. She had said no, and that one word had sealed her fate. Lyra looked at the timer again. She had 7 minutes left. Her heart felt small in her chest. She wondered if this was how her life would end alone. Hated, ignored. She thought of her home planet, the oceans she once swam in, the red moon she watched every night. She thought of her mother's voice telling her to be brave. Outside the chamber, workers and soldiers gathered to watch through the glass walls. Some whispered that Lyra deserved this. Some whispered that she was foolish. Very few whispered that this was wrong, but none were brave enough to speak for her. The captain's power was too great. His word was law. The void door began to hum, a low, deep sound like a monster breathing on the other side. The steel slowly glowed, preparing to open. Lyra's knees weakened. She closed her eyes for a moment. She waited for the end. Suddenly the entire ship shook. Lights flickered, and alarms screamed through the speakers. A bright red message flashed on every wall. Unknown ship detected. The guards turned their heads, confused. The captain snapped orders, demanding information. A second alarm shouted, louder and sharper, approaching at illegal speed. The workers outside panicked. Some ran, some stared at the screens. The captain clenched his fists. He demanded the ship ID. A frightened officer replied, "It is a human fighter craft, sir." The captain froze. His face changed for the first time, a mix of anger and surprise. Why would a human come here? This zone was forbidden to them. No human had reason to cross into alien military space. Lyra opened her eyes at the sound of the alarms. Humans were known across the galaxies for being stubborn, reckless, and brave. But they rarely appeared in alien strongholds, and never alone. The officer's voice trembled again. "Sir, the human ship is not slowing down." The captain shouted warnings across every channel, ordering the human craft to stop or be destroyed. But the small fighter did not respond. It kept coming closer, faster, like a burning star falling from the sky. Lyra watched the guards shift nervously. Something felt strange. Something felt impossible. Why would a human come toward an execution chamber? The timer above her head moved to 3 minutes. The hum of the void door grew deeper. The air vibrated. Another alarm burst through the chamber. Human fighter docking without permission. Chaos exploded. Guards raised weapons. Soldiers shouted orders. Officers scrambled to stop the docking bay from opening. But the human ship forced its way in, engines roaring like thunder. The captain stared at the screen, confused and furious. He ordered all units to prepare for combat. Then something happened that no one expected. A broadcast message from the human ship echoed across every speaker. A calm but strong voice spoke only 3 words. "I'm coming in." Every guard turned toward the main door. A heavy silence filled the chamber. Even the void door stopped humming for a moment. Lyra felt her breath catch. She didn't know who the voice belonged to. She didn't know why he was here, but something inside her whispered that this human was not here by accident. The captain shouted for the guards to surround the chamber entrance. Weapons pointed, alarms screaming. timer counting down 2 minutes left, the door began to open. Bright white light spilled into the chamber, and a human silhouette stepped through the smoke and steam. Confident and fearless, Lyra stared in shock. The guards froze for a moment. The human pilot stood tall, eyes locked on her. Like he had crossed the whole galaxy for this single moment, he whispered. One sentence under his breath, so soft only she could hear. I'm not letting you die. And the entire galaxy changed in that second. The guards reacted first, shouting orders as the human pilot stepped through the thick steam. But Jace did not look at them. His eyes stayed locked on Lyra, as if she was the only thing in the entire chamber. He walked forward with slow steps, fearless, calm, and focused. Every light in the room flickered around him, as if even the ship itself was shocked to see a human here. The captain pointed at him and roared for soldiers to open fire. But the human moved faster than their aim. Jace slid behind a metal pillar, sparks flying where laser shots hit the steel. The blast lights flashed across his face, showing determination in every line. He whispered something to himself, something like a promise. Then he stepped out again. No fear in his posture at all. Lyra's heart pounded harder than the alarms. She had heard stories about humans. Some said they were wild, some said they were brave, some said they were dangerous, but none of those stories ever said a human would run into an alien warship alone, especially during an execution. She had no idea who he was or why he had come, but his eyes told her one thing. He was here for her. Jace raised both hands slowly, not in surrender, but in warning. He spoke in a steady voice. Move away from her. His tone was calm but strong. The guards hesitated for the smallest second. And that second was all he needed. Jace reached into his belt and pressed a tiny device. A deafening sound burst across the chamber, like thunder inside their skulls. The guards dropped their weapons, grabbing their ears. Lyra stumbled back from the shock and Jace rushed toward her. His suit sparked with small blue lights. He pulled a tool from his wrist and touched it to her glowing chains. Electricity danced, and the chains shattered into dust. Lyra gasped as her hands fell free for the first time in days. Can you walk? Jace asked quickly. His voice was calm but urgent. Lyra nodded even though her legs shook. She took one step forward and nearly fell. Jace caught her arm, his touch surprisingly gentle. She looked up at him, confused and breathless. Why are you here? She whispered. Jace didn't answer, not yet. His eyes scanned the deck like a soldier mapping danger. He didn't let go of her arm as he pulled her behind a nearby control console. More guards gathered, blocking the exit. The captain screamed in anger. You dare break into my ship for a worthless criminal. His voice cracked like fire. Jace stepped out from behind the console, placing himself between Lyra and the line of soldiers. She's not a criminal, he said quietly. You just wanted her fear. The captain raised his weapon. She refused my command. She refused my claim. For that she dies. Jace's jaw tightened. His hand moved to the side of his suit, a blue light blinking under his glove. Not today, he said. Before the captain ordered his men to shoot, Jace threw a glowing sphere into the air. It burst into a wave of silver smoke that spread across the chamber, blinding everyone except him. He grabbed Lyra's hand firmly. Stay close, he said. Don't let go. Lyra followed him as he ran through the thick smoke. Her legs heavy, her heart racing. Alarms changed tone, warning of intruder movement. The ship map glowed on every screen, showing red dots chasing two moving blue ones, Jace and Lyra. Who are you? Lyra asked again as they ran. Jace didn't answer immediately. His breathing was steady, his steps sure, his focus sharp. They reached a corner where two guards waited. Jace moved with sharp speed, kicking one guard aside and knocking the other to the floor with a single strike. Only after both guards fell did he finally speak. My name is Jace Arden, human fleet pilot. But right now none of that matters. He looked at her with eyes full of intent. I heard your distress signal. Lyra froze. I never sent one. she said, confused. Jace hesitated for the first time, his voice lowered. Then someone wanted me to find you. Lyra's breath caught. Someone had called a human to save her. But who, and why? The ship shook violently as new security doors closed behind them, sealing off routes. Jace grabbed her hand again. We don't have much time. The whole fleet will come after us. Lyra looked at him, the only light in this nightmare. Why risk your life? She whispered. Jace looked straight at her, eyes steady and warm in the flashing red alarms. Because letting you die, he said softly, would be the real crime. And before Lyra could speak, he pulled her into the darkness of the next corridor, where danger and fate were both waiting for them. The smoke from Jace's flash device spread through the metal corridors like a thick silver fog. Every red alarm light cut through it like a blade. Lyra stayed close behind him, her steps weak but determined. She had been chained for days, starved, humiliated, and moments from death. Now she was running with a human she had never met, a human who risked his life to save her. It felt unreal, impossible, almost like a dream her mind created to protect her from despair. But the heat of Jace's hand in hers told her this was real. Behind them, guards coughed through the smoke, their voices angry and confused. The captain's order blasted through every speaker. Find them! Kill the human and bring the girl's body to me. The rage in his words made the metal walls tremble. Jace stopped at a corner, checking both directions. His breath was steady, his movements sharp. He was trained for danger, trained for war. But this mission wasn't war. It was one man against an entire fleet. Lyra swallowed hard. Why would a human come here? She whispered again. But Jace didn't answer. Not yet. His eyes stayed focused on the hallway in front of them. He pulled a small round scanner from his belt and placed it against the wall. It hummed softly and projected a map of the ship. The path ahead showed many red dots moving fast. The enemy was closing in from all sides. We need to reach the hangar, Jace said. My ship is docked there. Lyra stared at him with wide eyes. How did you dock without being destroyed? Jace gave a small breath, half a smile, half disbelief. I used a trick that humans aren't supposed to use. It's not legal, Lyra blinked. You broke your own fleet laws. Jace looked at her with steady eyes. I broke a lot of things today. Before she could ask what he meant, a metal door ahead slid open and 3 guards rushed out. Jace pushed Lyra behind him and moved forward like he had done this 1,000 times. His movements were fast but controlled. He dodged a shot, grabbed one guard's arm, twisted, and dropped him. He kicked the second guard to the floor and used the third guard's own weapon to knock him unconscious. Lyra watched, stunned. Humans were rumored to be strong, but she never imagined this level of skill. Jace grabbed her hand again. We move. Now as they ran, Lyra noticed cracks appearing in Jace's careful calm. A small tremble in his fingers, a hint of fear in his breath. He was risking everything. She wanted to ask why, but her voice felt locked. When they reached a lower corridor, Jace suddenly pulled her into a supply room. The door slid shut behind them. He placed a small device that jammed scanners. The alarms outside grew louder. Soldiers were spreading everywhere like wildfire. Inside the dim room, Lyra leaned against a wall, trying to catch her breath. Her legs felt like sand. Jace knelt and opened a pouch. He pulled out a small water capsule. Drink, he said, his voice softer now. Lyra took it with shaking hands and swallowed. Her throat burned from dryness. She whispered, I don't understand. You don't even know me. Jace's expression shifted, as if he carried a secret too big for the moment. He sat down on the floor, leaning against a crate, his face lit faintly by the red emergency glow. You're right, I don't know you, he said. But your signal knew me. Lyra frowned. I told you I didn't send any signal. Jace stared at his gloves. No, but someone used your identity to send a distress call directly to my private channel. Her heart stopped for a moment. Someone wanted a human to save me, she whispered, confused and scared. Jace nodded slowly. And not just any human. Someone wanted me to come. Lyra looked at him, trying to understand. Why him? Why now? Why her? Jace finally lifted his eyes. They were full of something she couldn't name. Lyra. Before I came here, I was ordered to stay out of alien territories. Humans are not allowed near your fleet. If the Human Council learns what I did today, I could be exiled or imprisoned. Lyra's breath weakened. Then why come? His answer came quietly, almost like a confession. Because when I heard that you were going to be thrown into the void, I couldn't let it happen. He looked away, embarrassed, as if saving her was something shameful. Before Lyra could reply, the door behind them exploded inward. Guards stormed in. Jace pushed her behind another crate and fired a stun shot. Room filled with sparks and shouts. The battle was fast and brutal. Jace moved like lightning, but the guards were too many. One grabbed Lyra by the arm. She screamed. Jace turned, eyes burning with something fierce. He tackled the guard, slammed him to the floor, and pulled Lyra into his arms. We have to go now, he said. They're bringing the captain. Lyra felt his heartbeat against her arm, strong and desperate, and in that moment she understood. This human was willing to face a fleet, break the law, and destroy his future. For her life together, they ran back into the burning halls where fate waited at every corner. The metal halls shook with every alarm as Jace pulled Lyra deeper into the heart of the warship. The ship was massive, built like a steel city floating in space, and now every corridor echoed with footsteps, shouts, and the sharp clank of guards spreading out to hunt them down. The walls flashed red again and again, painting Lyra's face with light and fear. Jace kept her hand in his grip firm but gentle. He didn't let her slip for even a second. His eyes moved fast, scanning corners, shadows, and ceiling vents. Every part of him looked ready to fight or run in an instant. Lyra felt like she was following a storm made of steel and courage. They turned into a narrow passage where pipes hissed and steam leaked from broken vents. Jace pulled her close when one vent burst, spraying hot pressure across the wall. He shielded her with his body and pushed her forward. Keep going, he said. We don't stop here. Behind them, heavy boots thundered. The guards had found their trail. The captain's voice crackled through the speakers again, filled with fury. Bring me the human's head, and the girl alive or dead if she resists. Lyra's heart slammed painfully in her chest. The captain's voice always filled her with cold fear. But this time something was different. Jace didn't flinch when the order echoed. He didn't shake, didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. He only tightened his grip on her hand and ran faster. They reached a fork in the corridor. Two paths ahead, both dark, both dangerous. Jace paused for a second, checking his wrist screen. But before he could choose, laser fire blasted from behind them, burning the wall beside Lyra's head. Jace instantly moved, pushing Lyra down behind a support column. He fired back with sharp, controlled shots that forced the guards to scatter. Sparks flew across the floor as shots hit metal. Jace leaned close to her and whispered, "On my mark, run left." Lyra nodded even though her heart felt like breaking through her chest. Jace fired a loud sonic blast, the echo shaking the whole hall. Now, he shouted. They sprinted left, deeper into the ship where the lights grew dim and the walls felt older. Lyra struggled to keep up, but Jace slowed just enough to stay beside her, guiding her with every step. They entered a long maintenance tunnel that smelled like oil and iron. "This place is not safe," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. "It's safer than the main halls," Jace replied. "The soldiers don't like narrow spaces." The tunnel seemed endless, but Lyra noticed something about Jace. His breath was heavier now. He was strong, impossibly strong, but even he had limits. Sweat slid down his forehead. His arm trembled slightly when he wiped his visor. "You're hurt," Lyra said softly. He shook his head. "Just tired," he said. "Humans can push past it." But she could see the dark burn mark on his side. He had been hit earlier, and he hadn't said a word. Before she could speak again, the floor vibrated with a deep rumbling. A distant metal roar echoed through the tunnel. Then blue light swept across the walls, like a predator searching for prey. Jace's eyes widened. "Drones," he whispered. "They released the hunter drones." Lyra felt her whole body tense. Hunter drones were fast, precise, and merciless. They didn't miss. They didn't stop. They didn't care about walls or rules. Jace grabbed her hand again and ran. Faster than before, Lyra tried to match his speed, the tunnel twisting sharply as they followed the narrow path. Behind them, a metal shriek echoed, a drone entering the tunnel. The blue scanner lights grew brighter, reflecting on the metal floor. Like cold stars, Jace turned sharply into a side route, dragging Lyra into a cramped passage barely wide enough for their shoulders. The drone shot past the main tunnel with a loud mechanical scream, missing them by inches. They waited in the darkness. Pressed against the wall, Lyra could hear Jace's breathing, low but controlled. His arm brushed hers, warm and steady despite everything. After a long tense moment, the drone's sound faded. Jace peeked around the corner. "We move now," he whispered. They stepped into a larger hall where a huge grated bridge stretched across a deep mechanical pit. The engines of the ship throbbed below, glowing with dangerous energy. Lyra hesitated. "This bridge looks unstable," she whispered. Jace nodded. "It is," he said. "That's why they won't follow us here." But as they began crossing, the ship shook violently. The metal under their feet rattled and groaned. One section collapsed behind them. Falling into the engine fire, Lyra grabbed Jace in fear, but he steadied her with one strong arm. "You're safe," he said. "I've got you." Before she could answer, a voice echoed across the chamber. The captain, his tone filled with cold satisfaction. "You cannot escape me, human." Lyra froze. Jace's jaw tightened. The captain continued, "You may run through my ship, you may break my rules, but you will never leave with the girl alive." Then the overhead lights snapped on, bright and blinding, revealing a full squad of armed soldiers waiting on the other side of the bridge. Jace stepped in front of Lyra again, eyes sharp. "Stay behind me," he said, "no matter what happens." And the battle for their freedom began. Asterisk. The soldiers on the far side of the bridge raised their weapons in perfect formation. Their armored boots thudded against the steel floor as they marched forward, blocking every escape path. Bright lights overhead burned against Lyra's eyes, making it hard to see. But she could clearly feel the danger pressing in from all directions. Jace stood in front of her with his back straight and shoulders tight. His breathing was calm, his eyes sharp. He did not look afraid. Even though an entire squad aimed at them, he lifted his stun pistol. But even he knew it wouldn't be enough against so many. The captain's voice echoed again from hidden speakers, dripping with cold triumph. "There is nowhere left to run, human. Step away from the girl, and your death will be quick." Jace didn't move. Lyra felt her heart squeeze painfully. She had seen many people break under the captain's voice. She had seen soldiers kneel, workers tremble, and whole rooms fall silent. But Jace stood like stone, untouched by fear. Jace whispered to her without turning, "Stay quiet, stay close." The soldiers marched forward, their steps slow and controlled. The bridge swayed slightly under their weight. Lyra grabbed Jace's arm, her voice trembling. "Jace, we are trapped." Jace's answer was a soft whisper, "Not yet." Before Lyra could ask what he meant, the ship shook again, this time harder. A deep rumbling thunder moved through the walls. The engines below glowed brighter. The captain shouted orders, but even he sounded surprised. "What was that?" Lyra asked. Jace didn't answer directly. His eyes scanned the bridge, the ceiling, the edges of the hall, measuring every line, every bolt, every sound. He was searching, not for a weapon, but for a way out. Laser fire suddenly erupted. Soldiers fired first. Jace pushed Lyra behind a crate and fired back with sharp precision. Sparks exploded around them. The bridge shook from impact. Bolts popped loose from the rails. Lyra covered her ears as the sound thundered through. "The chamber, we can't hold them." She cried. "I know," Jace said, ducking behind the crate as shots burned the air above their heads. He reached into his vest and pulled out a small device shaped like a coin. Lyra stared at it, confused. "What is that?" Jace pressed a button, and the device clicked twice. "Our only chance," he said. He grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her to her feet. She stumbled but followed, trusting him completely now. He guided her quickly toward the edge of the bridge, toward the massive drop. Into the burning engine pit below, her steps froze. "No, Jace. We will die," she cried. He looked at her, calm and steady. "Not if I aim it right." Behind them, the soldiers advanced again, growing louder, closer, faster. A laser shot burned across Jace's shoulder. He winced but didn't stop. Blood darkened his suit. "Jace, you're hurt." Lyra panicked. "No time," he said, grabbing her waist with one arm. The soldiers prepared to fire a killing volley, dozens of weapons lighting up at once. Jace held the glowing device in his hand and breathed deeply. "Hold on to me, Lyra." She wrapped her arms around him instinctively. The soldiers fired. Jace jumped. They leaped off the bridge, straight into the roaring abyss below. The air tore around them as they fell, the engine heat rising like a hungry fire. The pit seemed endless. Lyra screamed into Jace's shoulder. His arms tightened around her. "You're safe," he said. Though his voice shook from pain and gravity, at the last second, he threw the glowing device downward. It burst into a bright blue shield of energy that expanded like a bubble, catching their falling bodies and slowing them just enough before slamming them sideways against a maintenance platform. They rolled across the metal floor, gasping and coughing. Lyra tried to sit up, but the world spun. "Jace, are we alive?" Jace groaned, pushing himself to his knees. Barely, he breathed. Above them, soldiers looked over the bridge edge, confused and unable to follow. The drop was too dangerous. "We bought time," Jace said, breathing hard. One hand pressed against his bleeding shoulder. "But they will come around. We must reach the hangar now." Lyra crawled closer to him. "You risked your life for me again." Jace gave a faint smile. "I'm not done risking yet." The maintenance platform led into a dark tunnel below the ship, an old transport shaft. Jace stood slowly, wincing. "Help me walk," he said softly. Lyra slipped under his arm, supporting him with all the strength she had left. The tunnel stretched before them like a path of shadows and burning hope. Somewhere above, the captain screamed in rage, but down below, away from the soldiers and guns, Jace and Lyra disappeared into the darkness, alive, together, and running toward the only chance they had left. The dark transport tunnel stretched far beneath the ship like a long metallic throat. Every step echoed softly. Jace leaned heavily on Lyra, his wounded shoulder bleeding through his suit. But he kept moving, forcing his legs to obey him. Lyra supported him with all her strength, though her own body trembled with exhaustion. The tunnel lights flickered as the ship shook again. The captain's angry voice stormed through every speaker. "Seal all escape routes. Lock down the hangar. The human and the girl must not reach a ship." Lyra felt fear twist inside her chest. She knew the captain's rage well. He never shouted twice. If he was shouting now, it meant something had shaken his pride, something he could not explain or control. Jace stumbled, but caught himself with a hand on the wall. "We're close," he whispered. "The hangar is above this tunnel." "But the fleet is awake now." Lyra looked up, confused. "Fleet?" Jace nodded weakly. "Not just this ship. The entire sector is receiving the alert. They're calling every vessel nearby." Before she could speak, the tunnel began to hum. With a strange vibration, metal groaned around them. The lights turned deep blue. Lyra froze. "Jace, what is that sound?" Jace's eyes widened, his breath caught. "That's not the ship. That's outside." A booming thunder rolled through the walls, several ships dropping out of hyperspace. Lyra felt fear spread cold through her chest. "They're surrounding us," she whispered. Jace nodded. "They want me dead before I can report anything. And they want you back to punish. Lyra swallowed. I never asked for this. Jace looked at her with gentle eyes despite the pain. You didn't have to ask. You deserve to live. She felt her breath tremble. Not from fear, but from something warm she didn't understand. They reached a vertical ladder leading up toward a maintenance hatch. Jace let go of the wall and lifted himself slowly. Lyra followed right behind. The hatch opened into a high balcony overlooking the massive hangar bay. Lyra gasped. The sight below was terrifying. Dozens of alien soldiers, patrol drones, security cannons, and the captain himself standing near the center, all waiting, all ready. But Jace's small fighter ship sat on the far side of the hangar, sleek, dark, built for speed, its cockpit glowing faintly. That's our way out, Jace whispered. That's impossible, Lyra breathed. There are too many guards, Jace smiled faintly. Humans don't escape by going around danger. We run straight through it. Before Lyra could ask what he meant, the hangar lights changed color again, deep red, sweeping across the walls. A loud voice boomed through the fleet's comms. All ships, prepare to fire on the human vessel if he reaches open space. Lyra felt her knees weaken. They weren't fighting just one ship anymore. They were fighting an entire fleet. Jace leaned against the railing, thinking fast. His eyes flicked over the hangar, measuring every angle like a puzzle he needed to break. Open. There, Jace whispered, pointing at a set of high-pressure fuel tanks along the right wall. If we overload one of those, we can create a distraction big enough to reach my ship. Lyra turned pale. Overload? That will cause an explosion. Jace nodded. Exactly, and explosions make people hide instead of shoot. She looked at him, her voice small. And will you survive it? He gave her a tired smile. I've lived through worse. For a moment, Lyra believed him, but Jace's eyes told her the truth. He didn't know if he would survive. He handed her a small device. When I say, run, you run straight to the ship, don't look back. Lyra grabbed his wrist. No. I'm not leaving you. Jace looked at her gently. I didn't come this far to watch you die. Then the balcony lights spotted them. Sirens screamed. Soldiers below shouted. Weapons pointed upward. Jace pressed a button on his wrist, and the maintenance balcony broke into darkness as smoke burst around them. Run! Jace shouted, pulling Lyra with him as they raced along the balcony. Blaster fire followed them like angry lightning. Metal shattered around them. Sparks flew across the walkway. Lyra nearly slipped, but Jace caught her hand and pulled her close. They reached the end of the balcony, breathless and cornered. Below, the hangar exploded into movement as soldiers rushed their way. Jace grabbed Lyra's hand tighter, his eyes burning with fierce determination. We jump, he said. Lyra stared at the drop. Jace, we will die. He shook his head. Not if I fall first. He wrapped an arm around her waist, stepped to the edge, and leaped. The hangar floor rushed up at them, soldiers shouting, alarms screaming. Lyra closed her eyes in fear, but Jace whispered in her ear, trust me. And for the first time since her captivity, Lyra believed in someone. They fell into the chaos below, straight into the final fight for their escape. Jace and Lyra hit the hangar floor hard, rolling across the metal surface as sparks and smoke swirled around them. Soldiers shouted and weapons charged, but Jace moved instantly, pulling Lyra behind a fallen cargo container. Shots blasted above their heads, burning holes into the steel walls. Stay low, Jace said, his voice tight with pain. He pressed one hand against his bleeding shoulder to keep himself steady, but he still fired back with sharp accuracy, forcing soldiers to scatter for cover. Lyra peeked over the crate and saw the captain marching toward them with a cold smile, flanked by elite guards. You were brave, human, the captain shouted, but foolish. Jace didn't answer. He grabbed the device he had given Lyra earlier still in her hand and pressed a hidden switch. A distant boom roared through the hangar as the fuel tanks on the right wall flashed with bright blue fire. The explosion tore through the air, creating a shockwave that threw soldiers off their feet and sent heavy crates tumbling across the bay. Lyra covered her ears, the blast shaking her bones. Jace grabbed her wrist. "Now run!" They sprinted out from behind the crate, dodging falling debris and leaping over broken metal. The air was thick with smoke and blue flames. Soldiers tried to aim, but the explosion had created chaos. Lyra's legs burned, her lungs screamed, but she ran harder than she ever had. Jace stayed right beside her, breathing sharply, pushing his wounded body far past its limits. "There!" he shouted, pointing to his small fighter ship at the edge of the hangar. Its wings were glowing from the heat, and its engines hummed like a heartbeat calling them home. They were halfway across the hangar when the captain appeared in front of them, stepping through the smoke like a monster rising from fire. His armor was scorched, his eyes wild with fury. He aimed his weapon straight at Lyra. "You," he hissed, "will die first." Jace moved in front of her instantly, shielding her with his own body. His jaw clenched, his voice steady even while his shoulder bled. "You will not touch her," the captain snarled. "You think you can protect her, human? You are alone." Jace's eyes narrowed. "I only need one reason to fight," he said, "and she is enough." Before the captain could fire, Jace charged forward, tackling him with sudden force. They slammed onto the metal floor, weapons scattering. The captain threw a heavy punch that sent Jace sliding back. Blood dripping from his lip, Lyra cried out, "Jace!" The captain stalked forward, weapon in hand. "You cannot win," he hissed. Jace stood again, shaky but unbroken. "Watch me," he whispered. They clashed again, metal ringing under their boots. Jace dodged the captain's blade and struck his armor with desperate strength. But the captain was bigger, stronger, and fueled by anger. He grabbed Jace by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Lyra screamed, running toward them even though she had no weapon. She grabbed a loose pipe and struck the captain's arm. The blow was small, but it shocked him enough to drop Jace. The captain turned to her with rage. "Worthless insect!" He raised his blade. Jace moved faster than pain, faster than fear, faster than thought. He grabbed the captain's arm and twisted hard. The blade fell, clattering on the floor. Jace picked it up and pointed it at the captain. "Stay away from her," Jace growled. The captain lunged with a roar, but Jace dodged aside and struck the power core on the captain's chest plate. Sparks burst out, the armor shorting. The captain fell to one knee, weakened but not defeated. "Go!" Jace shouted to Lyra. "Run to the ship." But Lyra shook her head. "Not without you." Jace looked at her with soft eyes, even while the captain crawled toward him. "Lyra, you have to live," he whispered. "That's why I'm here." She grabbed his hand, tears burning her eyes. "Then we live together." Jace felt something. Warmth surged through him, stronger than pain, stronger than fear, stronger than the fleet waiting outside together. They ran toward the fighter ship as soldiers regrouped behind them. The ship's cockpit opened automatically, welcoming them inside. Jace slid into the pilot's seat, his hands shaking but determined. Lyra took the seat beside him, her breath fast but steady. "Hold on," Jace said. "This will be rough." The hangar doors began to close, heavy steel plates sliding shut to trap them inside. Jace slammed his palm on the engine controls. The fighter roared to life, engines screaming, blue flames shooting backward. He pushed the throttle. The ship shot forward like a meteor, sparks trailing behind. Soldiers diving out of the way, the closing doors inches from trapping them. They blasted through the narrow gap just before it sealed, scraping metal and tearing paint, but they made it into open space. The stars exploded into view, cold and bright, but the danger was not over. The alien fleet floated ahead, dozens of warships with weapons aimed at them. Lyra gasped. "Jace, we can't fight them." Jace smiled faintly. "Good thing I didn't plan to fight." He activated a small device on the dashboard, the same one someone used to send him Lyra's signal. A bright pulse shot out from their ship, echoing across The stars, suddenly, human ships uncloaked around them. An entire human squadron. Lyra stared in shock. Jace. They came for you. Jace nodded, eyes soft. No. They came for us. The human commander's voice chimed through the pilot Jace Arden. You're in a lot of trouble, Jace laughed weakly. Get in line, the commander continued. But first protect that girl, we're taking you home. Lyra felt something inside her finally break free. Hope, pure and bright. Jace looked at her as stars drifted around them. You're safe now, he whispered, and for the first time in her life, Lyra believed she had a future. A human had crossed the galaxy, broken every rule, and faced an entire fleet just to save her life. And that story would echo through the stars for generations. The legend of the human who refused to let her fall into the void, and the girl who found freedom in his promise.